Good morning and welcome to Big Bets on Campus Live. It's 10:30 a.m. Eastern, and this is the Thursday NCAA tournament betting preview. Merry Christmas to all. I'm Stuckey, and joining me, as always, are the crew from the three-man weave, Matty Cox, Kai McKeon, and of course, Mr. Jim Root. With a lot to get to today, we're each going to give three best bets out. We're going to go by time slot. So we'll take care of the early time slot, the mid time slot, and then late night. And then we'll close things up by giving our favorite potential 13, 14, 15, or if you want to get crazy, 16 seed to advance in the bracket. Before we do get started, I want to remind everyone to make sure that you download the award-winning Action Network app. You can find all of our bets there, in addition to an abundance of data and content for today's slate and beyond. I also want to share an offer from our sponsor, BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Terms and conditions do apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Gentlemen, let's dive in to the madness. What a day. One of the best days of the entire year, in my opinion. Matty Cox, our leadoff hitter. It's good to see you, brother. Start us off with your favorite early bet of the Thursday slate.
It's the men in fur, a fate of Virginia here. The Wahoos are struggling down the stretch. I think it's been well documented. I've been fading this team almost to a stubborn fault, but I think the way that they have reconstructed their lineup, they're now playing Caden Sheedrick a lot more as kind of a prototypical big up front. I think Furman's built in this interchangeable positionless type of way that can exploit that. And I think their shot making will really play well against the pack line. I think the fact that this game probably plays to a slower pace, I think Virginia actually controls the pace, but that actually works in Furman's favor. I think Furman gets into trouble sometimes when they try and get up and run with the big boys. We saw that against NC State earlier this season. So I think the Wahoos dictating the tempo actually goes against them. Furman makes shots. I think they keep it really close here. 5.5, too many for Bob Ritchie and co as he continues his run after vanquishing the conference tournament demons last weekend.
Yeah, two fifth-year seniors lead that Furman team. They play a 5-out offense, and everyone shoots. It's not as elite of a shooting team as last year. They're around like 37.5%. They're at like 35.5%, but everyone on the floor shoots around 35%. That's what you need to do against Virginia's pack line defense. And yeah, Furman shoots a ton of threes, and this game should be slower pace, which generally favors the underdog. I wouldn't be surprised if we see a repeat of 2 years ago when Virginia was upset by a 13-seeded Ohio Bobcats team. Kai, where are you going on the early slate on Thursday?
I might be a homer, but I'm taking my Missouri Tigers. I am an alum of Mizzou, but I like them here against Utah State. As a dog, Utah State cannot take advantage of Mizzou's biggest weaknesses, which are defensive rebounding and defending in the post. It's not what Utah State does on offense. You do not play through a big man on the block. They are a spaced out team. They shoot the ball well, but so does Mizzou, and Mizzou is more equipped to handle that type of offense. Utah State struggles against athleticism. Mizzou has that in spades. And also, guys, I just kind of want to fade the Mountain West. 14, 35, and 1 against the spread over the last 50 NCAA tournament games. I learned that from you guys. Appreciate it. I listen. Fade the Mountain West. Take the Missouri Tigers.
All right, I'm going to disagree with you here, but I can see your case. It's the old analytics versus athletes game here. Missouri, not a team that the analytics favor, and they really do like Utah State. But Utah State, the Aggies will certainly be at an athletic disadvantage. Both teams like to shoot a ton of threes. Utah State does a little better job of preventing threes. I'm a little worried for Missouri in that they give up so many threes, which works in the SEC, but now you're going up against one of the best shooting teams in the country. Utah State also grades out elite against press and zone defenses, which Missouri will utilize quite a bit of. But again, the trump card is the athletic advantage and how poor the Mountain West has been. I think they're 0-9 against the spread in their past 9 tournament games, which is wild. So speaking of homers, maybe to break the tie before you give your pick, Jim, athletes or analytics? Which side prevails?
I'm going with athletes this week in this particular instance. But for my actual best bet, I'm kind of hedging this. I'm going to agree with both of you, and I'm going to go with over in that game. I got it 154.5. I think it's been bet up a little bit. I would take it up to 157. I think this is a track meet up and down. Mizzou will force tempo by pressuring, and I know Utah State grades out well against pressure, but they haven't seen super athletic pressure that frequently. And as you were mentioning, Mizzou gives up a ton of threes. They gamble a lot. If you take care of the ball, you will get open shots, and Utah State can make a lot of them. On the other end of the floor, I think Kobe Brown has just a total mismatch advantage against basically everybody on Utah State. He's either stronger or quicker than everyone they can throw at him. They're going to have to double, send extra defenders. That opens up the three-point shooters. There's just a clear route to points for both teams. And when I also consider that, I think tempo will be up there. I like the over a lot between those two.
Well, it's the weave against Stuck. Well, Maddie, I should have asked you. Do you have pick a side, athletes or analytics?
I'm with the nerds. Revenge of the nerds here. Yeah, they've been awesome. I mean, they just lost to San Diego State by 5. They couldn't make a shot. Before that, they looked like a freight train. I think Utah State's all the way legit. So yeah, I'm sorry. I'm against the my fellow Mizzou alumnuses here.
Yeah, but Jim, where I will agree with you with the over, I agree. It's going to be fast-paced, tons of threes, which means lots of runs. So I like Utah State, but I bet them small because I assume I'll be able to get an even better price live on both teams, right? There's going to be a lot of runs in this game. Pretty good trading and live betting game. Market's so much more efficient now. But so keep that in mind. If you like a side, you don't really love the number, well, you have a sweat in and of itself by watching the game and waiting for a potential better number to pop up live. And Jim, it's been the year of the over this year. Do you have any reason in particular for that?
I'm trying to work on a theory here. Some of it is that there's more talent in the sport. Like no one's sitting out. That there's not a transfer class that's not in the sport. There's also a whole bunch of fifth-year seniors that are around, but that doesn't totally work because last year had that dynamic too. So you could punch a pretty easy hole in that. That's my working theory, but I truly, it just seems like they've gotten used to the 3-point line. The
Yep.
3-point shooting has ticked up for the first time since they moved that back. So that's probably a big part of it.
Yep, there you go. That's exactly what I was going to say with players getting more used to the 3-point line, and you see that in the percentage uptick. So I think that has a large part to do it. And then it's a good point on the overall talent improvement in the college basketball pool. Well, that's not a great transition into my best bet of the early slate, which is the first half under in West Virginia. Maryland played this at 65. If you go back over the past 25 years in the tournament, first half totals of 70 or lower in the early tips of the tournament have hit at a 66% clip. I think a reason for that is little nerves, especially in the first game of the tournament. Some jitters early on. And then for this game in particular, Maryland wants to play slow. They also don't turn it over. They compete on the defensive glass. That's, two of the best ways that West Virginia creates offense. I like both matchups for each defense here. So I think this one starts out slow. Both teams are feeling each other out. You might get some early jitters. So I like the first half under in West Virginia, Maryland. All right, let's get some player props from Sean Kerner.
Thanks, Stuck. I have 2 props that I absolutely love today. The first one is Max Asmus for Oral Roberts, under 22.5 points. Now, clearly, Asmus is one of the top scorers in the country. He's averaged 22.2 points per game this season, which ranks 7th overall in Division I. And Oral Roberts has averaged 84 points a game this season. Now they face much tougher competition here against Duke, and their team total is only 69.5 points. So that's 15 points lower than their season average. Asmus, he's a great free throw shooter. He shot 92% on the season. However, Duke sends opposing teams to the free throw line at the 15th lowest rate in the country. So they also might use extra resources to slow down Asmus. So there's a lot of things going against him here. That's why we're only projecting him closer to 19.5 points here with a 62% chance to stay under 22.5. And for my other prop, I'm actually staying in the same game, and this prop actually correlates nicely with the Ace Miss under, and that's Kyle Filipowski over 8.5 rebounds. And even though Oral Roberts is a very good shooting team, there are 4 factors that will likely create extra rebound chances for Filipowski based on this matchup. So the first is, Oral Roberts has the lowest turnover rate in the country. So that means a higher percentage of their possessions will end with a shot attempt. The second is they also get to the line at a very low rate. So that means even more possessions of theirs will end with a shot attempt. They also play at the 27th fastest pace in the country, which means there's just going to be more possessions overall for Duke here. And fourth and last but not least is Oral Roberts chucks up a ton of 3-pointers. While they're a good, shooting team, more 3-pointers means that there are going to be extra rebound chances for Filipowski. So that's why we're projecting him closer to 10 rebounds here with a 66% chance of going over 8.5. Back to you guys.
All right, let's move on to the mid-afternoon, early evening slate for best bet each there. Matty Cox back around to the top of the order. What do you got?
Looking at Colgate toothpaste first half, I've been a consistent Colgate backer in the insulated tournament, so I feel like I'm all the way in with the Raiders. I rode big with my guy Jordan Burnsy back when they took Tennessee down to the wire. There's no Jordan Burns walking through that door, but there's a lot of really good sharp shooters, well-connected team. Matt Langle, I think, is one of the best mid-major, low-major coaches in college basketball. The concern here is the athleticism gap that Texas poses, as we saw last year when Arkansas basically flipped the switch and just went 20-0 in a matter of seconds against the Raiders. I'm targeting first half here +8. I think the offensive nuance is something that Texas takes a little bit to adjust to. And I think when they awake, Texas will take them to the woodshed, but the first half will be a tall order for a new, unfamiliar defense to scheme against. I also don't think Texas has this, massive interior presence up front. I know they have Dylan Disu who's playing much better, but they're not going to crush Colgate on the boards. So I do think Colgate has a favorable matchup here, especially the first 20 minutes. So +8 first half for me.
Well, you're fading the athletes here. I am a bit worried about the defense of Colgate. I mean, even if you go back to that game against Arkansas, which they hung around for a while. I mean, last year against Wisconsin's a team that's more, on their same level athletically. But against Arkansas, that Colgate defense was like 150th in adjusted defensive efficiency. This one is like around 240. They stepped up in class once against Auburn, and I think gave up 93. So I'm a bit worried about the defense. They can shoot the three as well as any team in the country. They even have a guy who's shot over 150 attempts and is hitting over 50% on the season, which is just insane. So that always could work in the Dogs' favor. Kai, where are you going next?
Kind of similar to Matt's angle. I'm going with a first half bet here, 15 versus 2. I'm going Princeton first half around +8. The Ivy teams tend to do well in these tournament settings, especially early on in games. We remember fondly Penn back in 2018, 16 versus 1 versus Kansas. We bet them first to 15 in Vegas. It hit. We were excited. I think the reasoning is they play very intricate offenses in the Ivy, Princeton, obviously the Princeton offense. It's very tough to prepare for if you've not played it a bunch or seen it a bunch. Tough to prep for in practice. Also, their star player, Tosan, I will not try to say his last name. He can pull the slower Arizona bigs away from the hoop. A little bit of an advantage out there as he facilitates from the top of the key. Princeton also takes care of the ball. They rebound really well, and they slow tempo. So I like them to at least keep it close in the first half before Arizona adjusts and probably takes them in the second.
Yeah, Jim, curious to get your thoughts on that game as well. I mean, Tosan is a really good player. Can do a lot. He's a great passer. I think top 50 assist rate. They run a lot of stuff through him. They have shooters on the outside. Langborg has had a down year. I think he's only at about 31%, but last year he was at 40%. They have shooters who can get hot. But that's a very intriguing matchup. A team, a team from the Ivy who runs their offense through a big going up against the towers that Arizona has. Can his mobility give them issues, or do you fear maybe foul trouble on the other end? It's not a deep Princeton team, and if Tosan goes out, there's major trouble there. How do you see that one playing out?
If you're not totally asking me, but I prefer Kai's first half to Matt's ever so slightly. I like the angles on both, but I do think that offense is tricky to figure out because they're not running it through Tosan like on the block so much. It's more top of the key or elbow stuff. They try to get him isolated where you have to send a second defender, otherwise he can get by him. I do think Tubelis is going to just whatever stat line he wants to have, he can have in this game. Even against Tosan and Kelman, the other big man they throw out there. But I like the angle first half. I think it's going to be tricky. You've got Arizona kind of banged up too. Maybe they're not going to be all the way dialed in with Ballo and Crease's injuries. I like what Kai's looking at there.
Yeah, Princeton has to keep that at the half court game. Their transition defense is awful, and they don't play teams like Arizona on a nightly basis. But that's what I assume, are going to try to do here. But Jim, where are you going?
I'm going with another over, just like my early bet here. I'm going with Iowa and Auburn over 151.5. Also might be up a point or two. I saw some more 152 in the market. I'm totally comfortable with that. Iowa's just a super over team. They take care of the ball. They're going to live at the free throw line. They're really, really efficient on that end, top 5 in the country. And Auburn's going to feast inside on the other end. This Iowa defense is really soft, typical for Fran McCaffrey, but it's actually one of McCaffrey's worst defenses, and he's had some bad ones. I think Auburn's going to find ways to score there. And again, it's one of these SEC teams that does give up a decent amount of threes. Iowa's not as elite as normal from the outside, but they've got shooters that can get hot. I think they find ways to score efficiently, and the pace will be up there enough to get over this number.
Yeah, you can never go wrong with an Iowa over. I do have some fear that Auburn's been playing a bit slower of late. If you look at their trending adjusted tempo, I am curious about the Iowa turn. Like, they don't turn it over, but they don't really play teams in the Big Ten that are going to force a lot of turnovers. If you look, when they played Iowa State, they won by 20, but they had like a 30% turnover rate somehow. They turned it over a ton against TCU, but you trust them to take care of the ball here and score efficiently?
Yeah, well enough. And I know there's the discussion about Auburn playing a quasi home game in Birmingham. Alabama's also playing there. Their fans are going to be there en masse, and they will be cheering for Iowa. So hopefully it's not just like a hostile environment where the Auburn press and energetic guards take over. I think there's still enough of a neutral or even slightly pro Iowa crowd because of the presence of Bama.
Yep. All right. Sorry, Maddie. My best bet of the mid-slate, I'm going with Oral Bob and Max Asmus against the Dukies. I make this number significantly less. And I think Duke's a bit overvalued after their run to end the season. Look, their defense is significantly improved. I still think that there's some holes there, specifically in pick and roll, which will be problematic against midcourt Max. But look, Duke, the ACC is down this year. We just talked about Virginia, and they lost one of their starters recently. Miami lost one of the most important players in the first minute of that game against Duke. And Duke had really, really good three-point variance in that game. I think they shot 50%. Miami shot 30%. So I think Duke comes in here really overvalued. Oral Roberts as a star guard who can carry them. I think Connor Vanover pulling Lively out from the post. There's just a lot of things that Oral Roberts can do to score here efficiently. I think this is going to be a thrilling game. Look, I agree that if Duke wins this game, they are dangerous and they can make a run. But I don't think this is going to be a walk in the park. Give me Oral Roberts and midcourt Max. All right. Oh, by the way, Matt, are you afraid? How scale 1 to 10?
What's your terrified. Both teams got screwed here. The committee did no favors to Duke or Oral Roberts. I actually took Oral Roberts first half. So I have Duke going to the final in my bracket, full disclosure, but I did take Oral Roberts first half. Basically cherry picking that same angle that Kai and I talked about with Colgate and Princeton. Duke will have to adjust to the Vanover effect. It's just a different type of offense. A 7'5" guy that can just stroke it from 30 feet. Duke's not seen that all year.
Yeah, well, I mean, a similar. I was trying to look for a good comparison of who Duke has faced. PJ Hall,
Clemson, yeah,
who went bananas against them. I think he was at 26 in a Clemson win. Jim, who are you advancing in your bracket?
I picked Duke, but I've also bet Oral Roberts full game. I think it's going to be fantastic, and I will be cheering against my bracket for sure as we are gathered together. And I'll be pushing against Matthias there. Sorry, Chief.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, Duke's in a bracket where you could argue a lot of the in that East region, a lot of the top seeds are overseeded. So they could certainly make a run. I'll be rooting for Oral Roberts, but if Duke wins, give me an old-fashioned Duke, Kentucky Elite Eight. Selfishly, just for being here in Lexington. All right, let's move on to the night slate for our final best bet. Matty Cox, back to you. What do you got?
Yeah, stepping on your toes here, Stuck. I got to do this twice, actually, in our best bets. But I'm going with Penn State. Booty ball, Jalen Pickett, and the sharpshooting Nittany Lions. We kind of echoed the theme with Mizzou, Utah State, SEC team stepping out of the conference where no one can make a shot outside 15 feet. Mizzou facing Utah State. Now you have Texas A&M facing Penn State, who can absolutely stroke it from distance. It's also just a weird matchup, right? It's an inverted offense that you probably haven't seen before, posting up guards, playing inside out, just a lot of funky things that Micah Shrewsbury will throw at A&M. I know A&M's, legit. I've not been an A&M seller. It's just a tough matchup. And I think I'm going to keep riding the wave that Penn State, showed down the stretch there. So give me +3.
Yeah, another great coaching mismatch in this game. And yeah, when you think of the SEC, I think they were last in all of college basketball in 3-point shooting as a conference. When you think of SEC teams, who do you think of as being a good shooting team? Alabama could shoot the three. What did they beat? Missouri by 50. That's a team that gives up a lot of threes. You saw what they just did to Texas A&M. So yeah, I think Missouri and Texas A&M, two teams that give up a lot of threes by design, got a pretty tough matchups here just because they're playing teams that shoot a lot of threes and make a lot of threes. Penn State, which is my best bet, spoiler alert, they shoot and make threes at a top 10 rate nationally. And also, how does Texas A&M get offense? 3 primary ways, right? They get to the foul line. They'll have games where they get to the foul line 40 times. They force turnovers and they crash the offensive glass. Penn State never fouls. They do not turn it over. And they are great on the defensive glass, and they're going to get back. They're not going to go after the offensive glass themselves. They're going to prevent Texas A&M from getting out in transition. So yeah, I agree. I think this is more of a coin flip game. I think it's a really good matchup for Penn State. It's very comfortable as a 10 seed, as we saw last weekend. Yeah. Kai, we got 2 Penn State best bets in the night slate. Where are you going?
And I want to let you know I support you wholeheartedly on Penn State. I support Jim's bet as well, which I will not reveal. I will not spoil Jim's bet. I'm going UCLA, around -17.5, 17, 18, whatever you can find out there. UNC Asheville, great team. Love Drew Pember. They're their best player. He's a pro for sure. Him and Tajion Jones, though, the only 2 guys in that team that can score, create, do anything. I think that's pretty easy to game plan for, pretty easy to scheme. I trust Mick Cronin's ability to do that. Asheville has a lot of turnover issues. They like to cough up the ball. And even without Jalen Clark, I think this UCLA defense can cause problems for them. And their talent, their athleticism, the gap is huge between UCLA and Asheville. I like the Bruins here in an easy one and advancing.
Yeah, the Drew Pember, if people haven't seen him play, he gets to the line. He got to the line more than any player in the country this year. Tennessee transfer, so his Power 5, Power 6 talent level. And they use him in a variety of ways, pick and pop, ISO, on the block. Like he is a very versatile player, capable of going for, 48, which I think he did in an overtime win against UCF. Jim, Jaime Jaquez, is that the assignment here? And can he shut him down? I know Asheville also has a couple other shooters on the outside who might get hot in Jones and Aby, but everything starts and ends with Pember. I mean, UNCA, there's some questions on their defense. They want to press a lot to that's really when they have success, which you can't do against UCLA. But does Jaquez really take the assignment here, and can he shut down Pember?
Maybe it's Jaquez, maybe it's Bona, who's been an awesome defender for them, and he's supposed to be healthy. Cronin's saying he's going to play. That's a rather important factor there. But yeah, I also think the other end of the floor, they're going to try to trap too much, and Jaquez and Tiger Campbell will slice that apart. So as long as UCLA is engaged, I like that for Kai. Pember could have a huge game, and UCLA could still cover. That's basically how I see it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, where are you going, Jim?
I'm going with Houston, another big favorite here on this on the Thursday slate. -19 up to -20, could be a little higher with Sasser's status. I just think they absolutely smashed Northern Kentucky on the glass. It's like the most obvious matchup edge in the first round to me. I watched NKU give up 15 to 20 offensive rebounds to Cleveland State. multiple times this year. Houston's even better than them, more athletic, more physical on the offensive glass. They're going to punish them there. And Houston challenges jump shots as well as anyone in the country. And NKU kind of lives and dies by it. They do have contested shot makers, but I don't see them living up to it against this Houston defense with their length and defensive intensity on the perimeter. So even though it's going to be a lower possession game, I think there's a massive gulf in efficiency, and I'm very comfortable with Houston covering. They played a Horizon team as a 2 seed a few years ago, beat Cleveland State by 30 despite being shorthanded. I think we see something similar here.
Yeah, in that game, they're also about a 20-point favorite, playing a Cleveland State team that also ran a lot of zone and couldn't get defensive rebounds. And they had a 50% offensive rebounding rate in the game. You said they won by 30. I think they're up by like 40 with 5 to go in that game. For what it's worth, Kelvin Sampson, 7-0 against the spread in postseason play as a double-digit favorite. That includes AAC play, 2-0 in the tournament. And Horizon teams as double-digit underdogs, 13 to 16 seeds, been very poor since 2005, 2-8 against the spread. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the zone there. I mean, Houston it's good. If they're not making shots, it's going to be a layup line for them on every single offensive rebound. On the other side of the floor, Northern Kentucky's offense against man defense in the 16th percentile nationally per synergy. They're about 70% against zone, which they see a lot of in the Horizon. Not going to see that here. The fear is Northern Kentucky is going to shoot a lot of threes, and they have some capable shooters. If they're hot in a low possession game, these are two of the slowest teams in the tournament, it gets dicey to cover 20, but trusting the Houston perimeter defense paid a lot of dividends over the years.
Yep.
All right, let's, before we move on we're going to pick some potential Cinderellas, or at least to get through the first round. But I do want to remind everyone of our Action Network Madness watch party for the Elite Eight on that Saturday in Hoboken, New Jersey at Mad Hatter. Go to actionnetwork.com. You can check out my Twitter. I'll tweet it out for the RSVP. Everything's free. All you have to do is RSVP on the link, and you can come join myself, Chad Millman, Chris Raybon, Maria Marino, Matt Mitchell, our producer of our podcast, and others. Have a good time and sweat out some bets. So make sure you check that out. Now to Mr. Darren Rebell.
All right, here we go on the glorious Thursday of March Madness. We're going to give you the most intriguing splits right now. As we're seeing it, the larger spreads are where the public is comfortable. Kansas, 22-point favorites over Howard, 77% of the bets, 74% of the money on the Jayhawks. Alabama, 24-point favorites against Texas A&M Corpus Christi, 74% of the bets and 82% of the money is on the Crimson Tide. West Virginia, 2-point favorites over Maryland, 69% of the bets, 68% of the handle on West Virginia. And that one is intriguing from a total standpoint, 137.5, 50-50 on the bets. Other totals to look at: Virginia Furman, 132 is the number, 59% of the bets, 79% of the money is on the under. Illinois, Arkansas, 144, 68% of the bets, 87% of the money on the under. Iowa, Auburn, 151.5, 58% of the bets, 85% of the handle is on the under. Seems like everyone is loving the under, with the exception of the Duke Oral Roberts game. 146 is the total. 61% of the bets and 86% of the money is on the over. Duke and Oral Roberts, the second and fourth best free throw shooting team in the tournament. Maybe if that gets close, that over is going to hit. And reminding you that Big Bets on Campus is presented by BetMGM. Use the bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Back to you.
All right, one final task at hand, and that is picking a potential Cinderella or 13 to 16 seed that you think has the best chance to pull off an upset on Thursday. Matty Cox, what you got?
Yeah, there aren't many bold takes here, given how good the 13 seeds are, but, taking 5.5 on the point spread. But I'm staying with Furman. Talked about it earlier. Reminds me of the Colgate versus Wisconsin matchup we talked about earlier in the show, where you looked at that matchup last season. It's like, there's no way Wisconsin blows out Colgate. And they ultimately kind of faltered at the very end, but they were right there for 35 minutes. Furman, even if they have a bad shooting game, I don't think this game ever really feels like it's out of reach. So it's just the way Virginia plays is so bad as a favorite. Obviously, the Ohio loss and then the UMBC debacle come to mind. So, yeah, I think Furman really drew a prime matchup here with the Hoos.
Kai?
I agree. It's Furman for me, and that could also be because I'm really rooting for Bob Ritchie to go far into the tournament. Love his program, love what he's done there, and I hope he succeeds. He does have a favorable draw to get there.
Jim, Menifer as well?
Yeah, there's a couple of other really good dogs playing tomorrow, Friday, but it's between this and the Cajuns really for me, and I'm definitely going Furman. I think the draw is just so ideal. Matt hit all the key points. He mentioned a couple of the historical matchups. Even when they won the national title, Gardner Webb was up at halftime, stuck around in that game. It's not a team that's blown out these inferior foes very frequently. And Furman's just so skilled. The matchup really works for them. They're not going to get out athleted. I'm joining these guys. Clean 3-man weave sweep on Furman.
I'll make it 4 for 4. I'll go with Furman as well. What you worry about with Furman is their defense. There's some holes there. They can kind of be bullied, but they're not going up against an elite electric offense here. So yeah, I agree. This is a great draw for the Dins. So let's go Furman. All right, good stuff. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. Thanks to the 3-man weave as always, and to our audio and video teams on the back end. Do want to remind everyone one final time to make sure you download the award-winning Action Network app. You can find all of our bets there in addition to an abundance of data and content for today's slate and beyond. And also, one final reminder from our sponsor, BetMGM. Use the bonus code ACTION when signing up to get $1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Terms and conditions do apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy Christmas morning, and I wish you luck on all of your bets today. We'll be back same time tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Eastern, to preview Friday's slate. Same format. Hopefully find some winners. Good luck. Cheers.